Hi, Sarah here. Today I'm going to share with you 3 really fun air dry clay projects. This video shows you 3 of my air dry clay sculptures. These air dry clay projects are really great for a beginner, or if you've been doing lots of my other air dry clay videos, then please use this video to inspire your creativity and create some more beautiful items for your home. I absolutely love working with air dry clay, and I'm sure you do too. Please watch to the end so that you can see some different techniques that I use to make air dry clay sculptures. So let's begin. When making air dry clay sculptures, the sculptures might be quite large, and so we don't want them to be made completely out of air dry clay so that the drying time is even across the whole piece. So we can quite often start with something like wire as well, and that can give us extra structure and stability for the air dry clay. You can create a template and bend your wire around this, and then you can cover this wire in clay if you wish. But for this project I'm using the wire as part of the sculpture along with this piece of driftwood. For my air dry clay sculptures, I really like to use nice pieces of driftwood like this and wire just to enhance my air dry clay sculptures, and I encourage you to do the same. Some nice pieces of old wood can also work really well as the base of your sculpture to give it some weight at the bottom. To add to the heart on this sculpture, I'm going to add 2 little birds, and so those little birds are going to stand up in the driftwood, and I have some nails here, some old recycled nails that I'm just going to hammer in where I want the 2 little birds to sit. If you don't want to do this, you could wrap some wire around instead. To make the body of the birds, I've got some tin foil, so what we want to do is scrunch that up so that it's got lots of nice texture around, and then I'm going to attach this to my nails and just simply try and pinch it into a nice bird shape. Using the tin foil gives us that loose shape to use, and it makes it a bit lighter and makes sure that we don't have to use a full body of the air dry clay, and obviously you can make these as big or as small as you wish. To keep making them bigger, you can just add some more tin foil and scrunch it around until you're happy with the shape. These are now ready to be covered in air dry clay, and to give the air dry clay a little bit more texture this time and a little bit more of an earthy feel, I've just got some regular builder's sand here, and I've simply just kneaded it all in, and if you look a bit closer you can see it gives it a really lovely natural look. You can roll or pinch the clay to about 1/2 centimetre in thickness, and then my nails haven't quite gone into the driftwood completely, so I'm just taking them back out again, and I am simply just covering the whole of the little bird in this air dry clay. It doesn't have to be too neat at the moment because we can smooth it out as we go. The clay is nice and soft still, so it's really malleable and easy to sculpt. There'll be some little gaps that you need to fill in, so I just add some clay over the top while it's all nice and soft and blend it all in. The best tools for doing this are our fingers and hands. Once you've got it into the rough shape you want, you can take a little bit of water and smooth out any imperfections. Just spend your time at this stage and get it to how you want it to be, whether that's nice and rustic or nice and smooth. You can do absolutely any shapes you like using this technique. I just always seem to lean towards doing little birds for my red rocking bird, but I really do hope that this gives you some inspiration. This little bird's ready to sit and dry while I complete the second little bird, and I'll do exactly the same for this one. As you can see, this really is quite a simple and basic air dry clay project and would make a wonderful gift and a wonderful addition for your home, so I do hope you give some of them a go. I have 2 more air dry clay sculptures coming up for the next 2 projects. Here I'm just adding a little bit of wire for the beaks. I will then leave these somewhere safe to dry for at least 48 hours. As the clay is fairly thin, it shouldn't take too long to dry, whereas if you made the whole thing out of air dry clay, you might face some problems with the inside drying. Now I'm going to add the wire, and so I've just drilled a hole and I'm adding my little wire heart. As I say, you could cover this in air dry clay as well, but I'm choosing to leave mine like this. And I can't wait till this project's finished so that I can put it up in my home. It's going to look really, really lovely. The birds are now completely dry and I can take some really fine sandpaper and, if I wish, sand out any imperfections. If yours has cracked like this one has done here, not to worry. You can add a little bit of water onto the dry air dry clay and then either take some air dry clay slip or here just some very soft air dry clay and smooth it into the gaps and then let it dry once more and then sand over with some sandpaper. With the nature of air dry clay, you are going to get some small hairline cracks, but we can fix them as we did there. Once the air dry clay is completely dry, you can take some acrylic paint and add any details and any colour you wish. I'm keeping these quite neutral and simple, but you can obviously paint them in lots of bright colours and do them to suit your own home decor. As the nails didn't quite stay in place in the first place, I'm going to just add a little bit of glue into the hole and a little bit of the air dry clay and reinsert and attach them in this way. So with 2 recycled items and just a little bit of clay, we've made a really nice little clay sculpture that I will be very happy to put in my home. This next air dry clay sculpture is a little bit different again. It's an abstract sculpture based on some of the shapes that I do for my block printing. So if you can use a knife and some cutters to cut some nice shapes out of your air dry clay, you can definitely give this sculpture a go. Maybe you might be inspired by a painting by someone like Matisse and just make some shapes, any shapes of your choice, and make it into an air dry clay sculpture. I'm just cutting all of my shapes out of rolled slabs of air dry clay, smoothing them out as I go. If you have some clean lollipop sticks or some dowels like this, you can simply cut them and snap them with the scissors and then insert them into the clay so that we have something to stand them up with. Maybe you saw my easy air dry clay home decor video where I used some pepper to add some texture to the clay, and so this is what I'm doing here. It gives a really lovely rustic earthy feel that can look like stone, and I really love that. And then, as we did before, you can add some sand as well to change the colour and the texture of our clay and make it nice and organic feeling. So here I've chosen 5 different shapes that I'm cutting out with cutters and my knife and adding sticks in so that we can add these to the base once they're fully dry. For all of these air dry clay sculptures, you really don't need very much air dry clay at all, and they're really fun to make, and I do hope you give some of them a go. Once these are fully dry, I'll add them into some wood and make them into the sculpture, and hopefully it gives you some inspiration and a starting point for you to make your own air dry clay sculptures. So go ahead and add some textures into your air dry clay, and I hope this gives you some inspiration to do lots more fun projects as well. I'm keeping all these pieces really quite neutral, but you can of course colour them in any way you wish, and here I'm just adding some acrylic paint to the air dry clay and a little bit more texture, and so really experiment and give everything a try. If you'd like to do some more detailed shapes, then you can of course either print something out or draw something and then cut out a template. I really like to work with templates and air dry clay. This way, if you want to repeat the pattern, you can of course use that template over and over again. You can cut your shapes out using a sharp knife, or as I've got here, I have an open safety pin, and I find that piece of wire, the metal, with the nice sharp end, really cuts through this kind of shape really easily. So just drag it round the clay and cut away. Don't forget to roll all your leftover pieces of clay back together and put them tightly back in the packet to use for your next project. Tap the rough edges in like this to smooth them out, and then you can use a little bit of water to also smooth out your creation. Then set all your air dry clay pieces aside for at least 48 hours to dry, and in between times just slide them off, turn them very gently and turn them over to get them to dry evenly. Once they have dried, I'm now positioning them where I would like them on my block. I just have a scrap of wood here and I've simply laid them out where I want them, and I'm marking with pencil where I'm going to drill some holes. If you didn't want to use a piece of wood, then of course you can use a piece of air dry clay and set them very easily in this. I just wanted a bit of a wooden feel to mine, so that's what I'm using, but feel free to use whatever you have and whatever tools you have. I just have a bit of white acrylic paint here and I'm just giving the wood that lime washed sort of finish. Once the clay is fully dry, then of course take your sandpaper to it if you wish and smooth down any imperfections. Then I'll spray everything over with this spray lacquer. Add all of the pieces into your wooden block or the air dry clay, and there you have it, your finished sculpture, and I think it looks really beautiful. I hope you give it a go. We can use wire and tin foil inside our air dry clay sculptures, but I also like to use polystyrene. This is a piece of polystyrene from some packaging that would have otherwise just ended up in the bin. You can cut it and carve it really easy with just a simple kitchen knife. For this air dry clay sculpture project, I just need a simple block of it, and you can either glue it together or add some little dowels in it or some little nails to hold it in place. I've rolled out my air dry clay really quite thin in this instance, but you can do it much thicker if you wish, and I'm simply going to cover my polystyrene base with the air dry clay. I've covered it completely and smoothed it all out. I want to make it look like a piece of stone, so I'm just going to add some texture. I have some brushes and some different things, and I'm simply stippling up and down and giving it some texture. I'm really happy with how that looks, and this is a really great project if you're not that good at getting everything smooth, because we actually want to add some texture and some detail in there, and so it doesn't have to be perfect. I have some nails and they simply can just go in like this, and then I'm going to make some little clay houses. I've made some blocks out of polystyrene and covered these in the same way, and I have some nice little pieces of driftwood, and I'm going to blend these on there and add them in as detail, and then I will want to glue them on afterwards as well. I've made a few more little houses and I'm just going to add some more details to these. Keep adding them to the base and make sure they fit so that you've got the right sizes, and add as much texture and detail as you wish. So all of these shapes are from the polystyrene, and I do find if I cover the whole of the polystyrene in the clay, then yes, the clay does harden and dry really nicely around them and holds on to the polystyrene. I've used the sand and the pepper in this clay as well to give it a nice rustic and organic feel, and I'm just adding in some more details, and then I can take some paint as well and paint in any details too, and I just use an acrylic paint for this. See what you can recycle and reuse, like these lollipop sticks, and I'm using these as a little roof. You can use PVA glue to attach things to the clay, and to hold this in place I've just got some washi tape until the glue is dry. You can always use a stronger super glue as well. I've added all of these together onto the block now, and you can do them in lots of different combinations. You can add some nice text on there as well, and they look really beautiful in your home. I hope this air dry clay video has given you lots of inspiration so that you can make some of your own air dry clay sculptures and decorate your home with these beautiful pieces of air dry clay decor that you've made all by yourself, and they make wonderful gifts too. I have lots of other air dry clay videos over on here, so please do come and take a look, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.